Hello, welcome again to another podcast episode of Talk Architecture, a prequel to the new architecture curriculum. And I'm your host, Naziaty Mohd Yaacob. What is a prequel? Prequel is a literary, dramatic, or cinematic work whose story precedes that of a previous work by focusing on events that occur before the original narrative. I'm not saying what I'm going to talk about, which is the new architecture curriculum, as a drama or cinema work or cinematic or literary work, but I'm using prequel just to say that this is the preceding narrative. I'll take it as a story. I take it as a proposal of sorts. I take it as a narrative. So a prequel is a work that forms part of a backstory to the preceding work. Now, a prequel needs to have a reference. And I'm just taken from the internet a typical, it represents a Malaysian school of architecture. They are similar, but this particular one is something that I have been involved with in the past because I was employed in this university. So I'm taking the 5 years total course. In between there is industrial training, so it's 5+ years, 6 months minimum industrial training, by the way. So anyway, this 5 years and 6 months, part 1 and part 2 courses, the first degree Bachelor of Science in Architecture, and the second being Masters in Architecture. So, a quick overall look at this, because the prequel to the shall we say, the big thing, the big work, the major work, which is the new architectural curriculum, the prequel actually dissects or actually summarize or analyze and being observed by an analysis, the existing part 1 and 2 architecture courses. I've taken points from before regarding the run-up to this, the magic formula, the interview with Gogula Rajan, and I mispronounced Gogula Rajan. Okay. So, right, let's get back to here. Let's get back to this prequel. Now, I'm going to give a quick overview of the Bachelor of Science Architecture first. The only arts and humanities focus course is History of Architecture. There's 2 of them. One is Asian, one is Western usually. The Western one could be more towards the Malaysian colonialism, and also after that, independence in 1957 onwards, modern architecture. So, shall I say that here, they call it culture and context subjects. History is for these 2 courses, and measured drawing, which has to do with research on the history of a particular historical building, but they have to measure it. So it's a measuring exercise. That's 3 credits. So that relates more to the humanities. It's application for measured drawing, but it relates to humanities. We would argue that measured drawing also has some other content, some other references to tech and environment. And that's 7 credits. So design is 60 credits, all the 6 semesters for the 3-year course. Technical and environment is 20 credits. And topical research, could be tech-based, is 4 credits. It used to be a lot of arts and humanities in that. but it's up to the supervisor whether it will be tech. So it's now turned to topical research. It used to be linked to History 3. So this particular university has changed itself from quite a strong arts and humanities subjects in the shall we say the first degree to a more tech oriented curriculum. So when you look at the other credits, which is law, management, and practice, which is interesting because previously it was just 2 credits or it's less than the history one. Now it's 7 credits, meaning it is equal to the arts and humanities course. So students from matriculation, students from the foundation courses that come into this architecture course, they see the emphasis is more on tech and environment. Under tech and environment is material and construction, environmental physics, lighting and acoustics, structures, services, and working drawing. So as you can see that, just say if you focus on architecture design, that doesn't deal with arts and humanities in it, let's give it a try. 60 plus 20 is 80. And then you add topical research and law and management. An elective could even be tech. So that's about 11 to 13, meaning 93 credits. The other credit belongs to 93 credits is tech oriented. You know, it could be tech oriented if you want it to be. It depends on the lecturer, the interpretation of the curriculum. This, this is, I'm taking it as it is. I'm not trying to, this is evidence. So 93 credits. Then you have the 20 credits, which is the university courses. And interesting enough, in the university courses, there are arts and humanities. Yep. Oh, there's English, but English more for you to talk English better, less to do with English literature. And there's 2 English courses in the university courses, subjects, plus 1 on civilization, and that would be much more to arts and humanities. So what the university is trying to do, I'm not talking about the faculty or the department, they sort of agree or not, right? So trying to compensate technological courses with arts and humanities in the university courses. But of course, the university course is 20 credits. And I wouldn't want to go into detail, but I'm just trying to say that there's only 7 credits of arts and humanities out of 93, out of 100. 7 out of 100. So if you don't have arts and humanities in the architecture design studio, which is 60 credits, then you leave architecture school thinking that you're in the social science. You're not definitely not in the arts and humanities realm, which is what architecture was created earlier on, right? To do with a lot of philosophies, the human nature, questioning about humans is not just application, or science. So then in the MArch, Masters of Architecture, Part 2, 2 years, even more evident from this School of Architecture, from the Architecture Design 1 and 2, which is the first year or the 4th year, they call it sometimes, 1 and 2 semesters, and then you have the pre-thesis 7 weeks, which is half a semester, and the architecture design thesis 1 and 2. You have all the design subjects could be tech. In fact, for this School of Architecture, you have a high-rise building design, you have a housing design, and just another smaller building. And for pre-thesis, you could, if you want to go to sustainability, you don't even have to deal with arts and humanities at all in the Masters of Architecture Design courses. You have research methodology and architecture research 1 and 2. A lot of emphasis on research. And am I being cynical? I'm being skeptical. I like to say I'm skeptical rather than cynical, but my cynicism, if there is one, is regarding this is the agenda of the academic, not the student. The student don't really learn from this. And often it is wanting the student to do like the research methodology to fit into the design thesis, which the more I think about it, for goodness sake, it just make it difficult for students of architecture to do the research properly. What the objective of doing research methodology in architecture research is so that they obtain the research skills to be a researcher, in which in the future they could command those skills and become a better researcher or be researching as part of their main career. But the way it works is that they'll be juggling the curriculum so that this precedes the architecture design thesis, and you utilize the data or information from the methodology or the architecture research 1 with the design thesis. And the design thesis, the way the design process work, need to be independent from the research curriculum in the Masters of Architecture course. You could be doing something on lighting for architecture research in lighting in the church, but don't just mean that you have to do a church design for your design thesis. You could do something else. And you can learn a lot from that, learning from different aspects of things. So that's the thing about choice, the lack of choice. Seems to be there is choice, but the guidance is strongly guided. I don't know whether it's stated in the requirement of the, the brief handout, but it is strongly guided as such. This is from my own experience, with regard to the curriculum. Then also a compulsory course is the Green Sustainable Technology 1 and 2. And then you have the Professional Practice 1 and 2 in Architecture and Construction Management. So there you go. You don't have any arts and humanities in the Master of Architecture course. That's my one of the reason for my debate and my justification later on when I reveal the new architecture curriculum that only takes 3 years and has strong arts and humanities base, because that is the identity of architecture and architects. Now, in the Master of Architecture course, the Arts and Humanities course that are there is theory and philosophy, maybe the study trip, and, it's not going out to another, going overseas, doing a project per se, which is Arts and Humanities based. It's just, it could be a glorified trip that you do a bit of case studies, but it's not a project-based thing. So, in my opinion, there is a loss when arts and humanities are not evident in the Master of Architecture curriculum. So the others are design and build, urban planning, interior architecture, landscape architecture, and universal design. I know for a fact that because I teach universal design elective before, and also theory and philosophy for UD, and it is application of the universal design principles, not much on arts and humanities there. So in conclusion, you start with tech in the first degree and you have more of tech in the second degree. And that's good enough argument to want to just do a 3-year curriculum. Because you're just repeating stuff. How much of a green, green and sustainable tech, I mean, if you take that as an elective in the design studio, you also have people talking about green architecture a lot. So, and also in tech and environment, the basis of it. How much of that do you need to go and teach in the part one, and then you repeat it in part two? How much of green and sustainability do you need to teach for architecture? I'm asking this very, very important question. Just take a blank sheet of paper. You can design the curriculum. How much do you need really of green and sustainability? Right? Is that an interest group? Or is it a core design? It's an interest group, right? It's not a core design. In fact, in core design, in the design studio, you could have a project that has a lot to do with nature and low technology, for example. And then the challenge for the student of architecture in the first degree is linked to habitats. Say a group of people, such as fishermen in Terengganu. And you guide them to look into using local resources. You can guide them into have a case study on timber and the use of timber in building boats, and how that knowledge could be translated in building architecture. That is sustainability, by the way. And you can have inputs on that, case studies on that, on how there are architects that dealt with that, or non-architects that dealt with that. And you could visit those places if it's in Malaysia, or even overseas, maybe in Indonesia. And then from that understanding of technology, or case studies of low technology that you learn, you can design it in the studio. So you see, I showed how to kill two birds with one stone. And that is linked with material and construction and applicable directly to the project. So those subjects that are taught courses could be done through workshops in the studio, input, and applicable straight away. And there it needs to be a case study involved. I could go into this a lot more later on, when I explain the new architecture curriculum. But I'm giving a teaser of what's to happen with this prequel. And the teaser here, the prequel here, explain this is not on. From most of what I went through with the podcast, talking about liberal arts education, talking about the sort of education that architecture students need to have in order to be more confident and have a strong identity of being the architect, and in the light of the architecture industry, where society don't see the architect as being substantially an important profession, or has lost its certain identity, where developers can take over and other professions can do the work of the architect, because the architect decided to be a tech person per se. And yes, tech is important. Digital architecture is there. You have to go and deal with those things. But the thinking part, the design process, or the creative process has been left by the wayside. So there are certain hand-to-eye coordination, psychomotor skills, cognitive skills, affective skills that is necessary for the architect to master, and they could do it in 3 years. And this is just a teaser. Much of this will be discussed further. And the thing about why I'm putting aside the law, management, and practice in both ones can be done after the 3 years. Don't you think so? Because we're talking about 3 years of in university and 2 years going into getting a certification or license to practice architecture. So in those 2 years, you can have the professional practice and so on. So people after 3 years, they can go into different creative interior design, product design, filmmaking, and the ones that are wanting to pursue architecture, yes, by all means, but you don't have to have, you can have an M.Arch, but it's optional and it's not considered part 2 or a compulsory requirement. So there are only 2 parts. The first part, which is the degree, and the second part, which is the practical training, leading to licensing. And I think I have certain, I haven't talked to anybody from the architectural registration board in the UK, but when they propose this 2 parts like this, there must be some people who actually went through this in their brains as well, like I'm doing it right now. So, tech and environment courses, material and construction, environmental physics, lighting and acoustics, structure, services, and working drawing. These can be, when they talk about embedded, they used to want to revise the curriculum, but they kind of like try to justify it like this. So this is like a way to make it relevant. But for sure that we want the best one was if it was embedded in the architecture design studio, because the validation from Royal Institute of British Architects and the Malaysian Board of Architects or Lembaga Architect Malaysia, for example, they would come and they would look into how they embedded it, this technology and environment, culture and context, and all this inside the studio curriculum. So some of the studio curriculum has that agenda in them to justify the credits. But then, let me say again and again, there is repetition in the learning experience, hence the boredom and the unfocused learning happens. So some people after part 1 realize that I don't really have to go to part 2 because look at it. It's all about tech. And the university has helped to create an architecture program that is so tech-based. Do they want that? Would it be best in the long run for this particular university to have done that? So it's thrown out in the open now. I'm using this curriculum of this particular university. Many universities in Malaysia follow a similar trend, putting aside arts and humanities subject at the corner, making it less and less an important subject in architecture and the education of the architect, and this weakens the architectural profession as we know it. And I know people like to talk about little bits and debates about this and that, but let's go and take the bull by the horns and look at the architecture profession closely and how does the architecture education or the universities or schools of architecture help the profession or not. So this is the point of the new architectural curriculum. Thank you very much for listening, and I look forward to reveal to you the new architecture curriculum, and I will do it in a way that it will serve well. The new architecture curriculum, 3 years and 2 years. So I'm looking at the 3 years and 2 years before you get your license. So I also will look at the 2 years and how you get your license when you are, shall we say, practicing in an architecture company, which allow you to also study part-time certain subjects like professional practice and management subjects. So how do you actually learn tech and environment in the architecture design studio? Also the thing about the design thesis, also about the stages of learning different types of buildings and how they approach before in the design curriculum, how they look at the design curriculum and how they build it up even to the M.Arch level, and how I would argue that you can teach master planning for the first year. Yes, you can. Because it's just, I'm taking that stand that the tutor is going to work very hard. So therefore, what I'm saying is that the mentor, if you're a tutor, you may not necessarily be a mentor, but I'm taking the point that the tutor is also the mentor and have enough skills and foresight and determination and energy to actually help run and collaborate with a student of architecture for the new architecture curriculum. So that it is. Yes. And then we can go back to stuff like artificial intelligence and whatnots. We shall be doing that when we explain in a few of the other episodes after the reveal of the new architecture curriculum. We will go into details on that. Thank you very much for listening again. Bye.